Hello YouTube, my name is Tyler. This is my reading wrap up for November. It's been a while since I've filmed a video. I have just been in a crazy book slump and I have just not been enjoying anything that I have been reading. So I just haven't been recording because all of my thoughts are basically like, this was fine, this did nothing for me. I'm bored. I didn't enjoy this. Like, there were no thoughts. And the heat just turned on. And since I am now standing because the heat kicked on, I'm gonna try and keep this video very quick. So I will give you my wrap up, rundown, stats, and I guess list the books that I read this month since I didn't record my check-ins, but we'll see how it goes. Okay, so I read 17 books this month, so I'm still reading a lot. I'm just not enjoying what I'm reading. I read 17 books, 5 of them were audiobooks. I definitely thought I had listened to more audiobooks than I have, but I'm also like listening to a long audiobook right now, so that probably contributes to the feeling that I was listening to more audiobooks than show up in the stats. I didn't DNF anything technically, but I did read like the first page or two of a lot of things and then just immediately realizing like, I didn't have the brain power to read this particular book, or like it just wasn't going to happen with where I am at with my reading in particular at this very moment. So while there were no technical DNFs, I was DNFing stuff this week or this month. I read 3 books off my Goodreads TBR and 1 book off my physical TBR. Literally, I was just reading whatever seemed like it could snap me out of my book slump. So I was not focusing on stuff that was on my TBR. And that puts my TBR stats at, my Goodreads TBR is at 101 when it was at 98 last month. And then my physical TBR, I don't know. I ordered some books and bought some books like before I really admitted to myself that I was in a book slump. And I just haven't had the energy or will to like write them onto my TBR list and count them and stuff. I think it's at 23 now, but I'm not really 100% sure. But like I said, just haven't been focusing on stuff on my TBR like I have been. And I also started rereading a series of unfortunate events. So 4 of the books that I read this month were the first 4 books of a series of unfortunate events. Because I desperately just needed an easy win, really. And I have been enjoying those. Those have been the most enjoyable part of my reading month, and I think I just started reading those in like the last week or 2. So yeah, those aren't going to be counting as TBR books because I read them before, I own them. They're not contributing to anything. So there's that. 11 books came from the library. And I read 2 books by Indigenous authors, An Ordinary Violence by Adriana Chartrand and A Girl Called Echo by Katharina Vermette. That was a graphic novel that's kind of like a time travel type story. An Indigenous girl was kind of going back to points in Métis history, I believe, and their connection to like her family and just like Canadian history and things like that. I gave it 3 stars. So those were the Indigenous reads. I am technically reading Jazz by Toni Morrison right now, but I have not made a lot of progress. So yeah. As for ratings, I had 1 1-star read that was Dracula. I had 2 2-star reads, which were Body Horror, Capitalism, Fear, Misogyny, Jokes by Anne Elizabeth Moore. This was the only physical TBR book I read. I did not like it. Something about the way this particular author writes just like did not sit well with me. A lot of the points she made, I don't know. While reading this, I realized that I don't find feminism solely as a lens for understanding the world to be as useful as it used to be, like when I was in college. I wouldn't say I'm like not a feminist, like that's not the point I'm making. I just find more intersectional frameworks to be more useful, more focused on class and things like that, race, and like she touches on those things in here, but I don't know, just like a lot of it did not work for me. So there is that. And then the other 2-star read was The Hunger, which I talked about in the only other video I did this month. And then I had 9 3-star reads. So like I said, just a lot of like forcing myself to finish anything, read anything, and then just like not feeling anything for it. So I listened to Cage of Dreams by Rebecca Schaeffer. That was the second book in the like City of Nightmares duology, and it was fine. I listened to The Nickel Boys by Colson Whitehead. Again, fine. Like it didn't do anything for me. There were parts of it I liked, but most of it was just like, okay, fine. I read a lot of like graphic novels that were just like fine. I listened to Goblin Mode, How to Get Cozy, Embrace Imperfection, and Thrive in the Muck. Again, a 3-star, fine. I think it probably would have been like maybe a 3.5 if I had read it, because there was a lot of like instructions in there that it's like just not engaging to listen to. But like still, I just don't think the goblin aesthetic that they were talking about in this is my vibe. So just like a lot of fine books. And then 4 stars. One of those 4 stars was Number Go Up by Zeke Fox. This was about cryptocurrencies, kind of like the rise and fall, and it ends with Sam Bankman-Fried's arrest and extradition to the US. I read it literally the week that Sam Bankman-Fried was found guilty, I think. So it was timely reading. I did enjoy it, but it wasn't like anything extraordinary, blow me out of the water. I do think it would probably be a good read for someone just kind of wanting to get the history of crypto. And I think it was written really well, and it was a pretty fun listen. It was not overly like complex or serious, so I enjoyed it. And then The Bad Beginning and Reptile Room by Lemony Snicket, A Series of Unfortunate Events. Those were 4-star reads as well. And then I had 0, not a single 5-star read this month. So that left my rating for this month, like my average rating, 3 stars, period. Like no decimal, no rounding, no nothing, 3 stars. It is the worst reading month by far. So there's that. As for my other average, it took me 16.7, so 17 days to read a book. That is because Dracula took me 190 because I read it over the course of 7 months. And Body Horror also took me almost a month to read. So some long reads, some very, very long reads in there. Yeah, I think that's really all I have to talk about. I did read a book about like mindfulness for ADHD, but it was an older book. I don't know, it just didn't feel right rating it, so I did finish it, I counted it, but I didn't rate it. I think that's really all I need to talk about, just looking back over it. So yeah, that was my reading month. Next month is just going to be like all A Series of Unfortunate Events. I'm going to finish that hopefully in December and hopefully get things back on track. Not on track necessarily, just like back enjoying reading. I'm working through The Secret History also. I started that hoping that would be the thing that snapped me out of my reading slump. Donna Tartt is not the writer to snap you out of a reading slump when you're like just struggling to focus on the words on the page. But I am still slowly making my way through it. I just only have like the capacity to read like 20 pages before I start completely zoning out. So yeah, hopefully December will be a better reading month. All right, I will see y'all later. Bye.